Part 22. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 211. He was smart. He put the blame on King Qingluan and wanted to stay out of it. After all, people believe in love. He didn't want to play this role in this incident and ruin his reputation. Remember the domain name of this site, Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. King Qingluan wanted to cry but had no tears. He could only take the blame silently. A grand wedding turned into a farce. It was a joke of the dynasty that people could remember even after 1,000 years. What a joke! What a joke! Emperor Yanlong looked at Zhang Junjian and the others again. He squinted his eyes and said, "Zhang Junjian, you just got rid of the suspicion of Huangtian Pass, and you embarrassed me so much. If you have any objections, you can talk about it in private. In such an occasion, I have to lose all my face. I will sentence you to the crime of deceiving the emperor. Do you admit your guilt?" Sure enough, it was impossible for Zhang Junjian to get away with it. After all, what the Flame Dragon Emperor said was not wrong. Zhang Junjian's appearance today did not take the overall situation into consideration, which really embarrassed His Majesty. He had just finished speaking when Dong Yangjing said anxiously, "Your Majesty, I am also wrong. If you want to punish me, I am willing to share the responsibility." Such a woman, such a courage, this pair of Mandarin ducks will only make the world admire and praise them. This is their only way to deal with the Flame Dragon Emperor. Emperor Yanlong said calmly, "This matter originated from me. It also started from the prince. You want to use this method to win the beauty today, but you can't do it without going through the test. I am also a reasonable person, and I will never force you too much, but I can't let you mess up. So, since you are involved with the prince, I will let you and the prince resolve this involvement. If you can defeat the current prince, I will let you live together. If you lose, you will stay in Tai prison for another year to reflect on yourself. Don't do anything that will make my royal family lose face." Prince. This way of handling it makes people a little strange. If Emperor Yanlong thinks he is guilty of deceiving the emperor, he can just convict him directly. Why give him a chance? If you defeat the prince, you can live together. Zhang Junjian and the prince are now rivals in love. If they really fight, it will be very interesting. People in the world would think that Zhang Junjian was really impulsive and embarrassed Emperor Yanlong so much. It would be fine to sentence him to the crime of deceiving the emperor and let him stay in Tai prison for another year. However, now that Emperor Yanlong has given him a chance to be pardoned, people will only think that His Majesty is wise, and in this way, the embarrassment of the royal family can be resolved. This is indeed the best way to deal with it. Even if Zhang Junjian takes the person away, the face of the royal family can be saved, and the only one who will be embarrassed is the prince. If the prince can defeat Zhang Junjian, it will be his chance to win face for himself. If he loses, he will really lose all face. When people think of the rumor that Emperor Yanlong loves Princess Shenxiao and dislikes the prince, they can clearly hear that this is a test for Zhang Junjian and the prince. However, Zhang Junjian has been tortured in Tai prison for a year and has no time to practice. He has just been released and his chi is almost gone. How can he still have the strength to fight? But the people don't know his current state. It seems that Emperor Yanlong will not let Zhang Junjian go, and will give the prince a chance to clear his name. In the past, the prince was indeed suppressed too much by Zhang Junjian. Your Majesty is also a parent, so you can understand. It's already quite good that Zhang Junjian can have a chance. Yes, he messed up this event. If he can hold back today and tell Your Majesty about his relationship with Dong Yangjing in private, there are still many ways to deal with it. His Majesty is still giving him a chance despite his mess. It's really a great kindness. People's discussions are generally like this. At least so far, Emperor Yanlong still maintains his reputation as a wise monarch. As for the reputation of the prince, it depends on him to fight for it. In fact, it's not difficult at all, because Zhang Junjian can't even walk steadily now. Many strong men present could easily see that if he hadn't had a month to recuperate, the first and second levels of the Xuanmei realm might have been able to defeat him. After all, he was too weak now. Unexpectedly, Zhang Junjian was really a tough guy. Under such circumstances, he was still fearless and said, "Thank you, Your Majesty, for giving me the opportunity. I am willing to fight the prince." "No, Your Majesty, he has been in Tai prison for a year and has suffered huge losses. Now he has just come out and his combat power is less than 1/10. I am willing to replace him and fight the prince," Dong Yangjing said hurriedly. She is indeed a genius, but she is also 2 years younger than the prince and 3 levels behind in realm. It's just this affection that makes people see her determination. They should accept their fate. Your Majesty has given such an opportunity, which is really a great kindness, but they still want to entangle. People squinted their eyes. They knew very well that the Flame Dragon Emperor cared about his reputation, but such a grand event was destroyed like this and became a laughing stock in history. Even a saint could not easily fulfill them. But what people never expected was that a young man suddenly stood up on the altar. He said loudly, "Your Majesty, my brother just got out of prison, his vitality is badly damaged, and he can't fight. I am willing to fight on my brother's behalf. If I lose, I am willing to go to jail for a year." That person was Zhang Zizai. People were stunned for a long time. Zhang Junjian and the prince were both 20-year-old young men. At this time, he was only 16 years old. What kind of trouble did he come out to make? I remember that Zhang Zizai's most amazing performance was at the 6 prefectures grand meeting. At that time, he only defeated Princess Shen Xiao, who was at the 6th level of the mysterious vein realm, with difficulty. But the prince is a legendary figure who has reached the saint body realm. He is not at the same level as a young genius like Zhang Zizai. Moreover, today's events have nothing to do with him. He actually has to go to jail in place of his brother. It's really interesting. People laughed. Zhang Zizai and Zhang Junjian looked at each other. He probably knew what he was thinking. Zhang Junjian was really brave today. He suddenly stood up and held the Flame Dragon Emperor to step on the prince and the Blue Luan King. He also talked about the matter of husband and wife, and directly destroyed the marriage, and forced the Flame Dragon Emperor not to be angry. So far, Zhang Junjian has achieved his goal. Maybe he didn't think Dong Yangjing could escape, so he chose such a hard way. At present, the Flame Dragon Emperor is afraid of the world's comments, which has indeed had a certain effect, but it is almost impossible to get out of it unscathed next. However, if he can be in jail for another year in exchange for his love with Dong Yangjing, he is willing. Because this time he was not imprisoned because of the matter at Desolate Heaven Pass, he would definitely be able to get out, and he would definitely not be in a place like the disaster room, which was equivalent to confinement. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 212. If they elope, it will be a disgrace to the royal family. He will have to take Dong Yangjing away from the dynasty for the rest of his life and let her live a homeless life. He is not willing to do this. He couldn't bear it, letting his beloved not even be able to return home, so he showed up so fiercely today, hugging her in public. As a brother, Zhang Zizai knew that he had to stand up when his brother had already set such an example. His words indeed attracted a lot of laughter. "Zizai, are you okay?" When everyone looked at Zhang Zizai with suspicion, Zhang Junjian asked directly. Zhang Zizai nodded and said, "Brother, watch it, it depends on me whether you can hold the beauty back." It was so audacious for him to laugh in such a situation. Zhang Zizai begged again, "Your Majesty, I have just celebrated my 16th birthday, and I have only been practicing for a year, but I have the confidence to fight against the prince." My brother has given me countless guidance in the past 16 years, so that I am able to achieve today's results because brotherly love is thicker than water. I beg your majesty to let me take the punishment on my brother's behalf. His attitude is really tough, even though it is nonsense. The Yanlong emperor smiled and said, "It seems that all the young men in your family can bring surprises to others. Since you have begged like this, okay, I will give you a chance to fight for your brothers. Of course, after you are defeated, it is impossible for you to go to jail instead of your brother. Your brother needs to continue to reflect in Tay prison. You are my son-in-law, and I am not willing to have a marriage today." Zhang Zizai was really drunk. Today's events were ruined like this. He actually wanted to marry Princess Lingxian to him. He was so arrogant. What is going on in his mind? Until now, Zhang Zizai didn't know his purpose, didn't know why he let Zhang Junjian go, didn't know why he chose today, let alone why he wanted to marry Princess Lingxian himself. Even though something so embarrassing happened to the royal family today, he didn't seem to be really angry. It was really symbolic, giving Zhang Junjian a chance to escape punishment. Of course, no one can stop Zhang Junjian and Dong Yangjing from being together. Zhang Zizai must have known that his brother's statement about the couple's relationship must have been a lie. How could such a decent and responsible man like him be so promiscuous before marriage? Zhang Zizai looked down on him for this. Next to her, Ruohua looked at her two sons. She was really speechless. She had made so many reasonable arrangements today, but she found that she really didn't understand these two sons as well as before. Their courage were far beyond what she could compare with. The two little people finally escaped her cognition and gave her so many surprises one after another. For example, what happened today? If Zhang Zizai could defeat the prince, everything would be perfect and there would be no need to elope at all. Everything was on Zhang Zizai, and Ruohua knew his current level, so His Majesty agreed at this time, and she didn't say anything. "Stand up, you know how to save face." Yanlong Emperor glanced at the prince and scolded him softly. "Yes, father, the prince is still dressed in fine clothes today, which is interesting. The wedding is not going on, but the two grooms are going to have a big fight here. It's really exciting. The plot has ups and downs, and it's much better than getting married. Yes, but speaking of it, these two brothers are really courageous. They have completely offended the royal family for a woman. Of course, their father has already been cleanly offended, so it seems to be no problem. To be honest, if I were your majesty, I really couldn't bear it today." His Majesty can still give him a chance, which shows that he is really courageous. Even if he wants to execute Zhang Junjian, all the people can still understand it. After all, Zhang Junjian is so confused that he has brought trouble to the dynasty. Such a laughing stock. After all, it's not King Qingluan who caused this joke. He can't even control his own daughter. It's really funny. People talked casually, and then watched Zhang Zizai and the Prince Longyun compete with each other on the Yanlong altar. The faces of those members of the royal family were ashen, probably because they wished the prince would kill Zhang Zizai. Especially the queen, from the beginning to the end today, her face looked as ugly as if she had eaten poop. "My sword," Zhang Zizai shouted in the direction of the sacrifice temple. The Lonja sword was at the 9 Immortals place. "Let's go." Juxian swung the Lonja sword to his feet, and Zhang Zizai started to draw. He looked back at Zhang Junjian and Dong Yangjing, saw their hands tightly pulled together, saw their eyes full of hope, saw their happiness and love. Zhang Zizai was very clear in his heart. Today, I must not be defeated. I can't let her wait for him for another year. A girl's youth is so precious. It must be this year that they come together regardless of everything. When they get married and have a big fat boy, my mother will have grandchildren to play with, so she won't keep an eye on me, and I can slowly pursue Sister Juxian. Perfect. He cannot fail. Zhang Zizai was very careful when facing this guy who had come back from the dead. Opposite him, Prince Longyun looked gloomy. No one announced it, but the battle had obviously begun. Zhang Zizai, do you want to kill me again? Suddenly, a creepy smile appeared on the corner of his mouth. At that moment, Zhang Zizai's scalp was numb. He actually knew that he and Ling Xian had killed him, but why did he not react at all these days? Who is this Prince Longyun? Or, who is the person he killed? Zhang Ziben was very sure of himself, but when he met such an opponent, he could only try his best to calm his heart. His brother's happiness was on his sword, and he could not turn back. At this time, the Flame Dragon Emperor said to the crowd, "You two, spar with each other, just stop when you are satisfied, and don't let any casualties occur." He gave Zhang Junjian a chance and also gave the prince a chance to save some face. "I know, father, I won't kill him," the prince turned around and said sincerely. "It's good that you know. After the matter is over, they still have to get married." The Flame Dragon Emperor smiled and looked back at Princess Ling Xian. This girl, standing there motionless until now, without even looking outside, is really calm. After the prince finished speaking, the next moment, the 9 Flame Dragon Soul Claw came towards Zhang Zizai to kill. He was exactly the same as he was that night, just as powerful, and all his attack methods were the same. Zhang Zizai also put everything aside and entered the battle state. Pick up the sword, you can't lose. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 213. For everyone, this is a battle of a completely different level. It is reasonable for Zhang Junjian in his prime to fight against His Royal Highness the Crown Prince. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. For the Crown Prince, Zhang Zizai is just a junior of the next age group, and the person he should fight is Princess Shen Xiao. But inexplicably, the two of them fought at this time. People do admire Zhang Zizai's brotherhood, but in terms of fighting, this is nothing more than humiliating himself. Of course, if it were Zhang Junjian himself, with his current weak state, the result would be the same. So, His Majesty is just giving a symbolic opportunity, and if nothing unexpected happens, Zhang Junjian will have to go back to Tai prison for a year. It's really interesting that he has to come out just after entering. Your Majesty can't help but be angry about such a farce, Xiang Liuqiu said to his son Xiang Liuzhen. It's not easy to deal with them openly. After today's situation is over, they will suffer, Xiang Liuzhen nodded. At that time, they will also have the opportunity to avenge Xiang Liushu. I guess the prince even wants to kill their brothers, so His Majesty will remind them not to cause any deaths. While they were discussing, Zhang Zizai and the prince had already officially collided. The prince was obviously furious, and he was particularly fierce when he attacked. His 9 heavens flame dragon holy body shone with 9 layers of divine dragon shields, and the dragon shadows were heavy. Wow! He came like a sharp sword piercing through, and his hands used the 9 flame dragon soul claws, and the claw shadows in the sky covered Zhang Zizai's head. Zhang Zizai had seen the power of the 9 flame dragon soul claws, which was indeed terrible, and the speed of the fight was very fast. However, Zhang Zizai still used the lightning storm, and his whole body turned into black lightning and shot out, and for a while, the prince couldn't catch him. Bang bang! Even on the ground, the 9 flame dragon soul splitting claws tore many scratches. Hurry up, kill me like you did last time. The prince had a weird sneer on his face, which made people shudder. I am a ghost, and I am here to kill you. Are you afraid? You are so cruel. You burned me to ashes. This is more miserable than Xiang Liushu's death. He said this, and his actions were more fierce. Each claw was a flaming dragon shadow with fangs and claws, which was difficult to dodge. If you are not careful, you will have blood marks on your body that can be seen to the bone. To be honest, what he said did affect Zhang Zizai's state of mind. However, Zhang Zizai knew the significance of this battle. He had put everything aside and his only goal was to win. In this battle, he was able to hold on for a while, which was already amazing. He also used Baidu Yujian to counterattack. This was his battle tactic against Princess Shenxiao, which attracted a lot of admiration. At this moment, several talismans suddenly appeared in Zhang Zizai's hands. They were all soul-soothing talismans. Generally speaking, in any competition, the talismans drawn by oneself can of course be used. If they are not convinced, Zhang Zizai will draw the soul-soothing talisman on the spot. "Everyone, this is the talisman I drew myself," Zhang Zizai said, and several soul-soothing talismans turned into light, flew away, and enveloped the prince. Some of them were broken before they got close, but there were always some that stuck to his body, turned into talismans, and entered his body. The prince's soul was pierced by this, and he couldn't help but let out a howl on the spot. This is Zhang Zizai's chance. Another talisman appeared in his hand, which was a deceleration talisman. He also threw it at the prince one after another, as if it didn't cost money. These handfuls are all money, after all, totem talisman masters are so rare. Then there is the soul-soothing talisman. The deceleration talisman and the soul-soothing talisman were used continuously, and in a very short time, the prince was almost driven crazy. Ice Dragon Thorn Zhang Zizai did not miss this opportunity to counter-suppress. He kept casting talismans with one hand, using the soul-calming talisman and the slowing talisman continuously. In his other right hand, he held the dragon sword and killed him head-on. Fire Dragon Prison. This time, he used the Fire Dragon Prison in the light sword state. The lethality was not so explosive, but it was fast, fierce and accurate. With one stab, the angry flame dragon shot in front of the prince. Ice Dragon Thorn. He cast another soul-calming talisman with his left hand and covered the prince's head. Using talismans and battle tactics at the same time is a must for every totem talisman master in battle. Zhang Zizai also practiced for a long time and became so proficient today. As a totem talisman master, he actually uses talismans better than others. The Ice Dragon Thorn and the Fire Dragon Prison intersect. It is a double world of ice and fire, but this is not over yet. At this time, the talisman has been played. Zhang Zizai instantly turned the light sword into a heavy sword and held it with both hands. In an instant, dazzling black lightning burst out from the dragon ghost's sword. The dense black lightning formed a black thunder dragon composed of lightning. One sword slashed the Fire Dragon Prison and the Ice Dragon Thorn. Three swords merged into one, the dragon sword technique, the three disasters merged, and everything was destroyed. Boom! At that moment, the prince was already entangled by the talisman and was very irritable. Then he endured the three swords that Zhang Zizai burst out. The shield on his body exploded again. At this time, Zhang Zizai was stronger than the last time he killed him. This time, he was able to break his 9-layer shield like this and tear the violent power on him. It was not beyond Zhang Zizai's expectation. The prince screamed and flew backwards. In fact, Zhang Zizai could have killed him this time, but if he killed him again here, he would really be courting death. So at the last moment, he had already held back and recovered most of his strength. According to his estimation, he only caused minor injuries to the prince. Bang! The prince was covered with sword marks, and his groom suit was completely torn and stained with a lot of blood. He fell to the ground like this, and Zizai was instantly in front of him, with the dragon spirit sword in his hand pointing at his neck. "Your Highness, I'm grateful he put away the dragon spirit sword." With the process just now, everyone present could see that the winner had been decided. Zhang Zizai defeated the prince head-on. The entire Yanlong altar was silent, and people held their breath and looked at Zhang Zizai deeply. They realized that the terrifying cultivation of this young man was incredible. After practicing for a year, he defeated the Saint Body Realm. This is a mythical existence, which is more amazing than his father and brother. Many people were speechless and subconsciously looked at the sacrifice temple. They finally understood why the sacrifice temple wanted to protect Zhang Zizai like this. This is a rare genius that may not appear in tens of thousands of years. He defeated the prince head-on. In terms of strength and talent, Zhang Zizai has made the strong men from all sides, even the princes, ministers, and generals from all sides, feel a sense of fear. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 214. This silent flame dragon altar can be said to have lasted for a while. On the Prime Minister's side, Xiang Liuqian and Xiang Liuqiu were speechless. They looked at each other and couldn't help shaking their heads. If this boy is not eliminated, he will definitely be a great disaster in the future. His Majesty will definitely consider it since he is so amazing today. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward Arrow. He is indeed a genius. I didn't expect that he would grow to such a level after being silent for a while. Of course, His Majesty can still easily control him now. Don't worry, His Majesty can see it all, Xiang Liuqiu said. In addition to them, the State Guardian, the Imperial Censor, and the Major Marshals were also whispering. Even the East Dragon King, the West Dragon King, and the North Dragon King looked at each other at this time. Their sons were completely compared to the son of the Purple Scale King. People couldn't help but look at Princess Shenxiao. Sure enough, they saw Princess Shengxiao's angry face. She had obviously guessed that Zhang Zizai had deliberately lost to her during the Longshan hunting. In fact, after a period of hard training, she had already sprinted to the 8th level of the Xuanmei realm. She thought that she had completely shaken off Zhang Zizai, but she never expected that he would shake her off. Even the prince was not his opponent. How could she have a chance to catch up with him in the future? She was trembling in her heart. The demon barrier that she had thrown away appeared again. She felt that Zhang Zizai was like a ghost that would not go away. She might not be able to suppress him again in her life. In addition to them, even many people in the sacrifice temple couldn't believe it. Xiao Yushan, you guided his talisman, it's really good. Xinjiao God's servant was very satisfied. Xiao Yushan nodded, but he was stunned. He didn't recognize one of the talismans used by Zhang Zizai. He estimated that Zhang Zizai bought it outside, but at this time, no one seemed to care whether the talisman was drawn by him, so he didn't say much, so as to avoid His Majesty's investigation and judgment that Zhang Zizai used illegal items, which would harm him. How is it? My disciple, I trained him, is he strong? Next to Xiao Yushan, Juxian smiled and said to Enran, Feng Qingxian, Jin Yuxuan and Jian Nankaiu. Strong they could only mutter for a while, thinking that it was Zhang Zizai's own rebellion and had nothing to do with Juxian. However, this did not stop Juxian from showing off in front of them. Every time Feng Qingxian saw this woman's proud look, she wanted to slap her in the face. Everyone knew that if Zhang Zizai defeated the prince in such an occasion, he would become famous again. Defeating the prince and defeating Princess Shenxiao were definitely not the same concept. Even Princess Ruohua felt like she had let out a breath of anger at this time. Now, the disaster of Zhang Junjian and Dong Yangjing today can be regarded as completely over. Seeing them holding hands peacefully, Zhang Zizai felt very relieved. It was his responsibility as a younger brother to do this for them. He absolutely could not refuse. However, the prince lost his wife and was defeated by Zhang Zizai. He might never be able to raise his head again. Zhang Zizai also helped Shen Xiao. You said, is it possible that His Majesty already knew Zhang Zizai's ability and deliberately let the prince fight him? Now, the prince's reputation is probably ruined. He was so crushed in talent and lost face because of the crown princess. In the future, Princess Shenxiao may return to everyone's vision, Xiang Luguo said. Dad means that His Majesty still likes Princess Shenxiao in his heart? Today, he gave the prince a fatal blow, Xiang Lu Zheng said. Otherwise, why let the prince fight for no reason? Just punish Zhang Junjian directly. Zheng our family is too close to the prince, which is not a good thing. In the future, let Xiaoying spend more time with the princess. I understand. Such a change in the situation naturally leads to a lot of speculation. In fact, many princes and ministers have similar ideas to Xiangliu Zheng and others' speculations. It seems that the Flame Dragon Emperor has pushed the boat with the current, causing the prince to fall into a miserable situation now. Prince Longyun must be eager to find a crack in the ground to crawl into now. After all, he hasn't even climbed up yet. After being defeated by Zhang Zizai, he lay directly on the ground, as if he was seriously injured, and didn't get up. It seems that being defeated by Zhang Zizai is unbearable for him. Zhang Zizai, you actually killed my prince. Zhang Zizai was about to ask Emperor Yanlong if he wanted to let his brother and Dong Yangjing go. At this moment, Emperor Yanlong suddenly shouted angrily. At that moment, Zhang Zizai felt like a mountain was pressing on his head. The horrible pressure made him spit out blood. What? Zhang Zizai was a little confused. On the one hand, he and Ling Xian had killed the prince. On the other hand, he didn't kill him today. He just defeated his opponent and basically withdrew his killing move at the last moment. Why did Emperor Yanlong suddenly become so furious, look at him like this, and suppress him like this? He was stunned. He subconsciously glanced at the prince lying motionless on the ground. It was really strange that he lay there for so long. Zhang Zizai saw that the prince lying on the ground had a pale face, his eyes rolled up and he was staring at the sky, motionless, his qi was rapidly draining away, his body was rapidly stiffening, and his breath was gone. This was clearly the symptom of a dead person. I killed him. Zhang Zizai's mind was blank. He clearly remembered that he withdrew his killing move at the last moment. When Zhang Zizai defeated him and told him that he was willing to give in, he still remembered that the prince was still alive and screamed a few times. It was not long before he died silently. How could it be possible? What happened? From the prince's resurrection to his inexplicable death, Zhang Zizai's mind was confused. He felt dangerous. I can't kill him. There are so many weird things in the middle. It must be a trap and a design. Mother has always wondered why the Flame Dragon Emperor wanted to marry Princess Lingxian to me. His purpose must be revealed soon. But I know it now, it must be too late. His mind changed rapidly, but when he saw the Flame Dragon Emperor holding the prince, with a painful and regretful look in his eyes, he knew that he must have been tricked. It will be over soon. My son, the queen had ordered the prince to be taken away for recuperation. When she heard the news, she was also shocked. When she came to the prince and saw his death, she immediately let out a shrill scream. My son, from the queen's scream, the prince must be dead. What does the death of the prince mean to a dynasty? Today, major events happened one after another. When the entire Yanlong altar was shocked by this incident, Zhang Zizai's head was already numb. God's servant, save me. At this juncture, he could only react as quickly as possible and look towards the sacrifice temple. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 215. But when he said it, it was a little too late. He was standing next to the Flame Dragon Emperor. Next, it may be when the Yanlong Emperor carries out the ultimate goal of his long-term plan, how could he let Zhang Zizai, who is so close at hand, escape? The moment he called out to God to save me, someone had already pinched his neck and he couldn't move at all. Writing this, I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. That is the feeling of being suppressed by the gods. The eyes of the Flame Dragon Emperor, burning with golden flames, impacted his soul and made his soul sting. This is the most terrifying strong man in the world. When he directly deals with him, Zhang Zizai's only possibility is death. Zhang Zizai, I asked you to spar with the prince and gave your brother a chance. I told you not to kill anyone. How could you be so cruel and kill my prince in public? You are trying to end the dynasty's inheritance. You deserve death. These words were like thunder from the sky, hitting Zhang Zizai hard on the head. From the beginning to the end, he was confused. He could only use his last strength to grit his teeth and shout, "Godly attendant, save me." He knew that only the Xinyao divine attendant here could possibly have the strength to save him. Hurry up, 9 immortals were already crying in worry. This change was beyond everyone's expectations, including herself. In her haste, she wished she could just lift up the Xinyao divine attendant. Xinyao divine attendant frowned, stood up immediately, and said loudly, "Your Majesty, please calm down, there is something strange about this matter. We all saw that Zhang Zizai did not kill him. The prince died mysteriously. Maybe the murderer is someone else. Your Majesty, don't kill the wrong good guy." Unexpectedly, the Yanlong Emperor smiled coldly and said, "Everyone knows that the divine attendant protects Zhang Zizai, but the divine attendant must also take into account his own identity and stop talking nonsense. Who hasn't seen what happened to my prince? Killed by him. He could strangle Zhang Zizai to death at any time. Your Majesty, I'm not talking nonsense. Your Majesty has given you a quarter of an hour. Don't rush to kill someone. If you kill Zhang Zizai by mistake, Your Majesty will regret it for the rest of his life." She could no longer stay where she was, so she stood up and headed this way. Comes flashing. Stop her. Yanlong Emperor gave her a cold look, and then said to the others, "Here are all his ministers." After knowing his order, the 3 Dragon Kings, Prime Minister, Xiang Liujian, and others all stood up. Quickly gathered around the Flame Dragon Emperor. "Servant of God, please don't interfere in the royal family's affairs at the Temple of Sacrifice. Servant of God, please don't let the people of the world be disheartened." Those people completely surrounded them and blocked the path of the Xinyao divine attendant. The Xinyao divine attendant was only one person and could not break through their joint obstruction. But at this time, the Flame Dragon Emperor actually carried Zhang Zizai and appeared next to the Flame Dragon pillar in an instant. He pinched Zhang Zizai's neck and pressed his body heavily against the Flame Dragon divine pillar. The place where his back touched was scalding hot. "Zhang Zizai, your father thought that I didn't know that he gave that thing to you. That thing originally belonged to me, but now it needs to be returned to its original owner." A sly smile suddenly appeared from the corner of his mouth. This kind of thing, the smile was exactly the same as the prince's smile before. He has been waiting for such a long time, and today he finally showed his foxtail. "I guessed it when I saw your performance at the 6 Palaces Gala. I was just not sure at the time, but now, after watching your battle, I am 100% sure. Your dad thinks he is smart, but he has never been able to do anything in his life. You can't escape from my grasp, haha." Zhang Zizai heard what he meant. What his father gave him was nothing more than this black dragon totem. It's that black box. He did these things just to get his own totem. Zhang Zizai knew that this must be related to the Flame Dragon Divine Pillar. The reason why he chose an occasion like the God's Sacrifice Day must also be related to the God's Sacrifice Day. After all, you can only get totems on the day of worshipping the gods. Zhang Zizai couldn't speak. He had already controlled everything about him, like a god. Now, on the day of worshipping the gods, with this Flame Dragon Divine Pillar, I will let you experience the power of the Divine Annihilation technique passed down from our royal family's ancestors. Divine Annihilation technique. What exactly is it? Only Zhang Zizai could hear his words. Everyone else could only look at the Yanlong Emperor, who lost his son in pain and fell into anger. The emperor was so angry that he bled for thousands of miles. Zhang Zizai was really finished today. No matter how terrifying a genius is, if he dies, he will be nothing. No one sympathized with him. After all, the prince died, and someone must be buried with him. Although the prince's death was a bit inexplicable, he was dead after death. From then on, there was no more him in heaven and earth. When Zhang Zizai was pressed against the flame dragon divine pillar, the Xinyao divine attendant was unable to help because there were too many people blocking her. At this moment, an old man with white hair and grey robe suddenly appeared. On his grey robe, there was a black crescent moon embroidered on it. When people saw this crescent moon, they would instantly remember his identity. The attendant Yuan is here. The people worshipping at the temple have not seen Yuan divine attendant for a long time. Do it. As soon as the Yuan divine attendant appeared, he said to the Xinyao divine attendant. The two of them understood that one of them, Yuan divine attendant, was going to the Yanlong emperor, while Xinyao divine attendant wanted to entangle him. Many strong men. Two divine servants, are you going to treason? The Yanlong emperor turned around, and a roar swept the world. The two divine servants didn't respond, but they were crushing his men quickly, and the three dragon kings couldn't stop them at all. Haha, it depends on whether you are faster or I am faster. He smiled coldly, and at that moment, his palm directly pressed on Zhang Zizai's forehead, covering his black dragon totem. The divine annihilation technique is about to be used. The ancestors of the flame dragon protect me and help me activate the flame dragon divine pillar. His other hand suddenly pressed on the flame dragon divine pillar. For a moment, the entire flame dragon divine pillar trembled, and then, the flame dragon divine pillar actually burned, making bursts of dragon roars. The art of divine annihilation helps me turn the world upside down and turn all living beings upside down. At that moment, Zhang Zizai was completely engulfed by the flames. He felt as if he had melted into the flame dragon divine pillar. He was surrounded by an endless sea of fire, and the terrifying heat caused severe pain all over his body. What on earth is he going to do? Could it be that he could still take away his totem? What is divine annihilation? When Zhang Zizai saw all this, he was already sure that he really wanted to take away his totem. The prince's death was an excuse. He must have let the prince die, and even resurrected it. It was all his fault. He just wanted to be able to live up to his name on this god sacrifice day and let himself die in his hands, next to the flame dragon divine pillar. He is not willing to give in. The flame dragon emperor is indeed uncontrollable, he is indeed like a god, but can he succeed if he wants to take away his totem? Why? Zhang Zizai is also extremely angry. That's the anger from his totem. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 216. It is obvious that the flame dragon pillar and the day of sacrifice are important conditions for the success of the divine annihilation technique. Zhang Zizai has understood a lot. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. Why should Princess Lingxian be betrothed to him on the day of sacrifice? That is because he needs to ensure that Zhang Zizai will appear near the flame dragon pillar on the day of sacrifice. Arrange a wedding for him and betroth Lingxian, who is insignificant to him, to Zhang Zizai, which can ensure that Zhang Zizai will be here, and even today, he will not be able to return to the sacrifice temple. He is a member of the sacrifice temple. If this marriage is not arranged, the flame dragon emperor will not be able to ensure that Zhang Zizai can be brought here on this day. After all, he is also afraid that if the sacrifice temple refuses to let Zhang Zizai come out, he is sure that this is why he inexplicably betrothed Princess Lingxian to himself. Just to ensure that Zhang Zizai is not in the sacrifice temple today. Why did they release Zhang Junjian only today? It was obvious that they wanted to drag Zhang Zizai to this day of worship, otherwise, what if he suddenly returned to the great Zhongqing city? Zhang Zizai knew that the chaos caused by Zhang Junjian's coming here, as well as the challenge between him and the prince, were not in his plan. But since it happened, the Flame Dragon Emperor took advantage of it, so he could deal with Zhang Zizai in public with a legitimate reason. If there were no such changes, today's day of worship was so long, and it was also a day of worship until late at night. Zhang Zizai would have to enter the bridal chamber with Princess Lingxian in this palace, and would not return to the King Zhang mansion until tomorrow. He had plenty of opportunities. When Zhang Zizai became his son-in-law, it would be particularly convenient for him to deal with Zhang Zizai secretly. As for why he was so cruel and wanted to deprive himself of his totem by the death of the prince, Zhang Zizai didn't know. Even a tiger doesn't eat its own cubs, so how could he kill his own son? He seems to be fighting with my father for something, which means that the incident at Desolate Heaven Pass was probably not done by my father. It must be that box. The thing in the box has become my totem, he seems to want to take it away now. How can a totem be taken away? In the flash of lightning, Zhang Zizai thought a lot. He was in the sea of fire of the flame dragon pillar, with whistling dragon shadows everywhere, and countless flame dragons entwined around him. He could clearly feel that the hand of the flame dragon emperor was pressing on his forehead. The stinging pain of the burning soul was unbearable. You and Lingxian killed my son. By the way, let's avenge that poor guy today, his sneer echoed in his ears. He almost killed you last time and ruined my big plan. Fortunately, my people saw that you were not dead. It seems that you still have a protective object. He tore open the clothes on Zhang Zizai's chest and saw the green talisman. From his eager eyes, he also wanted to take this thing away today. Zhang Zizai thought, what he meant by these words is that the prince had died long ago. It is incredible that the things in the magic box will become your totem. Today, he will return the things to their original owners. Totem, bring it here. Boom boom boom. Zhang Zizai's spirit was shaken, as if something was about to be peeled off from him. Roar. He heard the voice in his heart. It was the black dragon, roaring angrily. Maybe a hand reached into the sea of life to pull the black dragon out. If it was pulled out, Zhang Zizai would be a useless person from now on. However, he had no chance to be a useless person. If the totem was pulled out, he would definitely die. He. The Flame Dragon Emperor encountered some obstacles, but this did not stop him. He continued, an endless light penetrated into Zhang Zizai's body from his palm, and Zhang Zizai's body was connected to the Flame Dragon God Pillar, and the three formed a reincarnation. The totem was going to be taken away. Zhang Zizai gritted his teeth tightly. He was so angry. The man in front of him had torn his originally happy family apart. I hate you, Zhang Zizai gritted his teeth and let out a low roar like a beast. It's not bad to die with hatred, the Flame Dragon Emperor smiled, you are a cunning fish. In order to catch you, I can even bear the death of my son. How can I let you leave safely today? You are a beast. Zhang Zizai endured the monstrous pain, his eyes were completely bloodshot. He knew that the entire Flame Dragon altar had become a mess because of the battle between the two gods and the princes and ministers. Zhang Zizai could cause such a huge change, which was enough to be recorded in the history books. Haha. In return, he smiled ruthlessly. It's okay, he seemed to have won. But he never expected that at this moment, in Zhang Zizai's own sea, the black petals in the black dragon's mouth shook gently. Boom. An invisible ripple shook away. Bang. People suddenly saw that in the Flame God Pillar, a person was suddenly shaken out. It was the Flame Dragon Emperor. He retreated several steps, spitting blood, and his eyes were dull. Impossible. How could the divine annihilation technique fail? The Flame Dragon Emperor was stunned. He looked at all this in disbelief, Watching the flames of the flame dragon god pillar disappear in an instant, and seeing the young man slide down from the flame dragon god pillar unscathed and stand on the ground. Pop! Suddenly there was a loud noise, which attracted people's attention. Oh my god, the flame dragon god pillar cracked. How could the origin pillar crack? Oh my god. It is said that this is the call for the annihilation of the clan. The flame dragon pillar that may crack will no longer bring totems to the descendants of the royal family. This is a rumor, not necessarily true, don't talk nonsense. This is the end of the dynasty. What did your majesty do? For a moment, tens of thousands of people stood up, their eyes wide open, looking at the cracks in the flame dragon pillar. Fortunately, it was not particularly large and did not cause the flame dragon pillar to completely collapse. However, they had never heard of the origin pillar cracking. Only the old man said that if the origin pillar was broken, it meant being abandoned by the ancient gods. This was a very terrible thing. These were all ancient rumors and no one had confirmed them. But it really happened today. The flame dragon emperor looked at all this dully. He couldn't believe his eyes. The flame dragon dynasty rose under this flame dragon pillar and ruled this territory for countless years. Such a divine object actually collapsed in front of him today. If something really happened, he would definitely be a sinner for all ages. If the flame dragon pillar was destroyed, there would be no more dragon totems in the future, and the royal family would be annihilated. Even he was panicking at this time. The annihilation technique of our ancestors has been successful many times. How could it fail in my hands? Until now, he was unwilling to believe that all this was true. Zhang Zizai, it's all because of you. His angry eyes burned Zhang Zizai's eyes. Zhang Zizai was a little slow to react. The burning of his soul was finally over. He didn't have any injuries on his body. Now he was awake. When he saw the broken flame dragon pillar behind him, he was also stunned. The petals are so terrifying. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 217. The petals were terrifying, but they might not be able to save Zhang Zizai's life at this time. The flame dragon divine pillar was cracked, and Zhang Zizai knew that no matter how calm the flame dragon emperor was, chaos would arise at this time. He was in a hurry to escape. Because he saw that although Yuan divine attendant got rid of them and came towards him, Yanlong emperor was obviously closer to him. Whoosh! I vaguely heard the wind behind me and heard someone calling my name. Zhang Zizai felt that he still seemed unable to escape the fate of death. The flame dragon emperor is so close, how can he escape? Boom! A huge force hit him, and when he hit the flame dragon pillar again, he almost collapsed. When he struggled to stand up, the flame dragon emperor had appeared in front of him, looking at him indifferently. If I can't get it, destroy it. He stretched out his hand to send Zhang Zizai to his death. At this moment, Zhang Zizai really smelled the smell of death. However, he was still prepared. The moon-hidden divine attendant once gave him a moon-hidden talisman. Before, it was under the control of the flame dragon emperor and could not be used. At this time, he still had a chance, so he used it without saying a word. Take it out. Suddenly, he was unable to move again. It turned out that he could stop himself from moving with just one look. His level is far beyond the holy body realm, and it is really terrifying for Zhang Zizai now. The moon-hidden talisman cannot be used at all. Still dying, Zhang Zizai was helpless. He could only hope that the mysterious talisman could save his life again. He glanced around and saw the heartbroken eyes of too many people who cared about him. Juxian, Ruo Hua, Zhang Yanning, Ruo Xiaoyu, Lu Dingxing, and Zhang Junjian. The two divine servants were really loyal and they were still struggling to come here, but the flame dragon emperor would not let them have such a chance. Come on, see you in the next life. He was free and easy. Anyway, Yan Dragon Emperor was not allowed to succeed. It's just a bit regretful that I couldn't go on with the 9 Immortals. At that moment, I suddenly saw Princess Lingxian. No one paid any attention to her anymore, and she was not far away. She took off the red hijab at some point. She was quite beautiful today, too beautiful to recognize. I killed the prince, don't touch him, unexpectedly, she said to Yan Longhuang very seriously. How stupid, who would pay attention to her? I killed him, let him go quickly. Her eyes were flashing with blood again, and judging from her state, she seemed to be going crazy soon. At this moment, people suddenly saw that the girl was crying with blood. As expected by Zhang Zizai, she turned into what she looked like that night again, with blood-colored dragon scales and spikes all over her body, as well as hair with barbs. Tails, a weak girl, suddenly turned into a cold killing machine. She was so bold that she rushed towards the Flame Dragon Emperor. She was a princess, what was she going to do? Get out, the Yanlong Emperor was a little surprised, but he was in a very bad mood now, and even the princess wanted to attack him. What on earth was going on? As soon as he flipped his hand, Princess Lingxian, who was covered in blood-colored dragon scales, flew out. However, she actually got up again and rushed over again. Get out, the Yanlong Emperor was furious. This time he used a lot of strength to make Lingxian fly to Ruohua. When he landed, there was already a lot of blood on his body. However, she still struggled to get up, and even let out a low roar like a wild beast, staring at the Flame Dragon Emperor with her bloody eyes. The Yanlong Emperor was too lazy to care about her, and then pressed Zhang Zizai with a palm. He was like a god when dealing with these young people. Zhang Zizai is completely ruined, and Lingxian will definitely not be able to save him. At this moment, suddenly, an explosion occurred in the sky, and amid the roar, a bolt of lightning and thunder struck the Flame Dragon Emperor. Bang! This is so similar to the time when the 6 prefectures held a grand gathering. Zhang Zizai knew that he appeared again. King Zilan, Zhang Yunting, this time, he is here to save himself. At this moment, he had escaped from the control of the Flame Dragon Emperor. In his excitement, the fastest thing he did was to use the moon-hidden talisman. Suddenly, he became invisible, and then he escaped instantly. His speed not too slow, after turning invisible, he was already out of the control of the Flame Dragon Emperor in just an instant. The 2 divine attendants saw that there was no need to argue anymore. The Yuan divine attendant knew the Yuan talisman best. He easily found Zhang Zizai's position, lifted him up, and instantly returned to the temple of sacrifice. Ruohua, 9 Immortals, and the others are all here. Mom, I'm fine. Zhang Zizai knew that they were worried about him, so he quickly stretched his muscles to show that he could not die. Everyone cared about him so much, Zhang Zizai felt that he would be happy with them around, no matter life or death. Zhang Junjian was also in front of him. He patted his brother's shoulder lightly and said, "Brother, good job. Of course I can't be worse than you." Zhang Zizai smiled. In his smile, he saw the 9 Immortals who had not come forward. He didn't expect that he could make this heartless guy's eyes turn red. She was really anxious. Unfortunately, Zhang Zizai had too many relatives around her, so she didn't hug him. As for Princess Lingxian, when she saw Zhang Zizai getting out of trouble, she fell softly into Ruohua's arms. In the blink of an eye, she returned to her previous weak look, but her face was a little pale and she was speechless. I didn't expect that she would fight against the Flame Dragon Emperor for me. This girl is incredible. Zhang Zizai just glanced at those who cared about him, because at this time, everyone had seen a purple figure falling from the sky and appearing in front of the Flame Dragon Emperor. After disappearing for such a long time, he finally appeared. The head of their family, Zhang Yunting. He seemed to have experienced a lot, and his face was full of frost. At this time, when he stood opposite the Flame Dragon Emperor, The two prides of the dynasty finally met face to face here again. The strong men from all over the dynasty stood behind the Flame Dragon Emperor at this time. The traitor had appeared. Zhang Zizhe was sure that there would be a big battle. The difficult thing was that the sacrifice temple seemed to stand on the side of the traitor. Zhang Yunding, you betrayed your ancestors, betrayed the dynasty, and killed 100,000 people in the desolate Heaven Pass. You still have the face to appear in the imperial city, Nangongke shouted. Zhang Yunding, you can surrender now. I will not let you escape today. To God's servants, this is a sinner of the ages. You too must not act recklessly, otherwise the foundation of the sacrifice temple for tens of thousands of years may be destroyed in your hands. Prime Minister Xiang Liuqiu was most worried that they would take action, so he warned them first. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 218. Zhang Yunding's appearance this time was completely different from the last time. Last time, he fought only in the sky to save people. But this time, he landed directly in front of the Flame Dragon Emperor. Taiwan Novel Network Rightward arrow. This shows that he is calm. However, tens of thousands of strong men are watching, and people really don't know what kind of confidence this big criminal who killed 100,000 people has. Does he think that the two gods will risk the world's disapproval to help him, the murderous devil? Many people looked at this man and couldn't help sneering in their hearts. He has been wandering outside for a long time, wearing a purple robe, with thunder rolling all over his body, like an ancient giant beast transformed into a human form. Maybe it's been a long time since he took care of it, and there is still stubble on his face, which looks particularly vicissitudes. However, the look he gave the Flame Dragon Emperor was also particularly indifferent. The Flame Dragon Emperor's divine annihilation technique failed today, and even failed to destroy Zhang Zizhe, and also caused the Flame Dragon Divine Pillar to shatter. The anger in his heart had already burned to the extreme. Tens of thousands of strong men stood beside him. The strong men of the entire dynasty were naturally not something that Zhang Yunding and the Sacrifice Temple could fight against. They completely suppressed Zhang Yunding and his men, and they gradually dispersed and surrounded Zhang Yunding and his men. Dad. Zhang Zizhe finally saw him. No matter how dangerous it was at the moment, he was strangely relieved. Because he knew that he must have some confidence in his heart when he showed up this time to protect his wife and children. Zhang Yunding did not look back. His eyes collided with the Flame Dragon Emperor. They used to be good brothers, but now they have become enemies. Zhang Yunding, you threw yourself into the trap today. Are you here to apologize for the death of 100,000 people in the desolate Heaven Pass? The Flame Dragon Emperor said in a deep voice. No, I'm here to persuade you to turn back, Zhang Yunding said. Haha. Traitors should be killed by the whole country. Anyone who protects Zhang Yunding will be guilty of the same crime as him. All the strong men, listen to my command, surround and kill Zhang Yunding, and on this day of offering sacrifice to the gods, use his blood to sacrifice to 100,000 people. Yes. Under the order of Emperor Yanlong, the strong men from all sides were excited. Most of the 6 palace masters were also here. The princes, ministers, marshals, generals, and city lords from all sides were all top strong men, and they were all powerful figures in all sides. There were also the 3 dragon kings, who controlled vast territories. In addition, the patriarchs of the 9 major clans came here today. They attacked together, and Zhang Yunding couldn't hold on for a breath. At this time, everything in the sky and on the ground had been surrounded. Emperor Yanlong didn't want to give him any chance to escape. If he could get rid of Zhang Yunding, he could slowly solve the matter of Zhang Zizhe. Anyway, Zhang Zizhe was now guilty of murdering the prince, which was not much different from the crime of Xuanhuan. At one time, tens of thousands of strong men took action. They felt that Zhang Yunding was going to die for his wife and children today, so they could only help him. Unexpectedly, In such an occasion, Zhang Yunting was still calm. He stared at the Flame Dragon Emperor and said, "Your Majesty, I have given you many chances, but so far, you have been stubborn. Don't blame me for being rude to you in front of the strong men from all sides." Hearing this, the Flame Dragon Emperor smiled. "To be honest, I think you have changed over the years. You have become arrogant and arrogant. You want to make yourself more powerful with greater achievements, but it is inevitable to go astray. So when I negotiate with you, I have some precautions. I didn't expect that there would be a day when it would come in handy." When Zhang Yunting was bullied by tens of thousands of strong men, he still did not change his color at all, and his magnificent voice spread throughout the Flame Dragon altar. "What do you mean?" The Flame Dragon Emperor narrowed his eyes. "Everyone, calm down first. It's time to let the world know some truths." Unexpectedly, at this time, Yuan Divine Servant suddenly stood up and spoke for Zhang Yunting. Zhang Zizai was a little confused. The truth? Yuan Divine Servant knows the truth. He suddenly remembered that a few days ago, Ruohua asked Juxian to introduce Xinjiao Divine Servant, and they talked alone for a while. He suddenly understood that his father and mother had already thought of everything today before. Even he didn't know. He really didn't know whether to laugh or cry. It felt so exciting today, but they had a plan. "Just now, I thought I almost died, but in fact, with my father there, I should not die anyway." But he was also extremely curious, what exactly was the so-called truth? Yuan Divine Servant still had the right to speak, so the strong men stopped for a while. Looking at each other, they didn't quite understand what Yuan Divine Servant meant. "Divine Servant, for a genius disciple, don't do anything that will make the people of the world feel cold." Prime Minister Xiang Liuqiu was heartbroken. "Prime Minister, you don't need to say anything, just watch." Yuan Divine Servant took out something that Zhang Zizai was very familiar with, and it was an image talisman. He was a little speechless. In this world, you really have to be careful when talking to people, otherwise it would be an image talisman. Under the attention of the crowd, Yuan Divine Servant glanced at the Flame Dragon Emperor, and he bloomed the image talisman. For a moment, a grand image was projected from his hand to the sky. People soon saw that the image in the sky began to play. In a dark secret room, there were two people standing. The one facing the image talisman was the current emperor, Flame Dragon Emperor, and the one with his back to the image talisman was obviously the Purple Scale King Zhang Yunting. "It's really interesting. Your world is the same as ours. Surveillance is everywhere." Juxian laughed dumbly. Seeing this scene, the face of the Flame Dragon Emperor changed drastically. He rushed to the Moon-Hidden God Servant without saying a word, saying, "The Moon-Hidden God Servant actually helped the criminals, which is a great rebellion." His voice trembled a little when he spoke. Obviously, he was panicking. Zhang Zizai had never seen him panicking before. He was panicking, which meant that the truth was explosive enough. "Follow me to kill the sinners," the Flame Dragon Emperor said to tens of thousands of ministers. The ministers were a little embarrassed. It seemed a little inappropriate to ask them to take action against the Moon-Hidden God Servant. He was the spokesperson of the ancient god. The Flame Dragon Emperor could only do it himself, but a purple thunderbolt appeared in front of him immediately. "Your Majesty, turn back." Zhang Yunting showed the figure of a huge purple thunder unicorn. 9 huge lightning bolts entangled this world-destroying beast. "Roar," the Flame Dragon Emperor roared. His Flame Emperor Holy Dragon Totem was also one of the 8 super totems. It was an Emperor Dragon, looking down on the world, with golden flames burning and shining brightly. The 9 tribulations Heavenly Kirin and the Flame Emperor Holy Dragon suddenly started fighting. The two were the strongest in the dynasty, and they were the 2 most powerful. The sudden confrontation between them was extremely exciting. The level of their battle was simply incomprehensible, and no one could be seen. However, the image symbol was still playing. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Feng-Qing Yang. Chapter 219. None of the tens of thousands of strong men showed up to help the Flame Dragon Emperor. The three Dragon Kings were brothers, and they had already gone up, but the Star God servant suddenly stopped them in front of them and said, "Three Dragon Kings, you should look carefully at the contents of the image symbol." They were all stopped, and tens of thousands of strong men could only watch the terrifying battle between the two super strong men while looking at the image symbol. The Flame Dragon Emperor wanted to intercept the image symbol, but was completely entangled by Xuanhuan. All the ministers listened to my orders. The sacrifice temple colluded with Xuanhuan and secretly betrayed the country. Follow me to capture these three people, otherwise my dynasty will fall into a desperate situation. Follow me to act. The roar of the Flame Dragon Emperor spread throughout the palace, and even the Flame Dragon ruins outside could hear the huge sound inside. What happened here will soon spread throughout the world. But at this time, the image symbol had already begun, and people had heard a lot of conversations between the two of them in this secret room. They were shocked and did not take action for the time being. There were only three Dragon Kings fighting against the Star God Servant, and only the Purple Scale King fighting against the Flame Dragon Emperor. Zhang Zizai was also paying attention to the content of the image symbol. In the image symbol, the Flame Dragon Emperor said with a pleasant face, "Brother, I heard that a vortex appeared in the sky of the desolate heaven pass the day before yesterday, and a divine box descended into the world and was taken by you." King Zilin nodded and said, "It is true. Everyone has seen it." The Flame Dragon Emperor said, "The Flame Dragon Pillar once had such a prophecy, which reads, the divine box descends, the origin is destroyed. I guess the origin is likely to be the origin pillar. According to such a prophecy, the origin pillar is likely to be destroyed. If so, our dynasty and the entire human race will be destroyed. This divine box is an ominous thing, leave it to me." King Zilin hesitated for a moment, but still shook his head and said, "No, who made this prophecy? I have never heard of it. This divine box is useful to me, so I can't give it to you." "Brother," the Flame Dragon Emperor was obviously angry. He said in a deep voice, "How could you know the prophecy of my royal family? This is a divine object that descended from my Flame Dragon territory. You should give it to me. I have taken care of you so much for so many years, how can you let me down?" King Zilin shook his head and said, "Your Majesty, this descended outside the desolate heaven pass, which is not the Flame Dragon territory. Besides, in order to fight for this divine box, I fought with many top source beasts and got it with great difficulty. How can I give it to you? Although you and I are the king and the minister, I got the treasure, and you asked for it directly. How can you treat me as a brother?" The Flame Dragon Emperor was unhappy, and he was also unhappy. Xuanhuan, Emperor Yanlong, was angry. He sneered, "We used to fight side by side. You have become more and more courageous in the past few years. You dare to disobey my will." King Zilin said helplessly, "Your Majesty, haven't you noticed? You are becoming more and more domineering. In the past, we discussed everything together. Have you ever robbed me of my things? I am the emperor and you are the minister. Shouldn't you listen to my orders? Do you want to set up your own business and be on an equal footing with me?" He gritted his teeth. King Zilin was stunned and said, "Your Majesty, I have done so many things for the dynasty, left my wife and children, and stationed here at the desolate heaven pass. I have never had any second thoughts. Your Majesty slandered me so much for a magic box? You still keep saying that I am a brother? Have you ever thought about how much you have changed over the years? Do you still have the original intention? Don't say these ridiculous things. Finally, I ask you one question. Will you give me the magic box? Emperor Yanlong asked. Zhang Yunting shook his head decisively and said, "This is my personal property, how can I give it to you? If your majesty gets the treasure of heaven and earth, I will never covet it. We were like this before." "Very good, you are very powerful." Yanlong Emperor smiled coldly, pushed the door open and went out, and then closed the door heavily. The image symbol ended here. People probably knew the cause and effect of the breakdown of their relationship, but what does this have to do with the 100,000 wronged souls in Huangtian Pass? This still cannot wash away Zhang Yunting's crime. After watching it, people only became interested in this God box. This is something that came directly from heaven. It may be something left by the ancient gods. It is definitely a treasure. It is reasonable for Zhang Yunting not to give it to the emperor. After all, whoever gets this treasure does not want to hand it over. It's just that they don't have the ability to fight against Yanlong Emperor, but Zhang Yunting has it, and Yanlong Emperor obviously can't do anything to him. But, what is this cause and effect? Just when people were a little surprised, they didn't expect that another image talisman appeared in the hand of the moon-hidden god servant. He played the image talisman without saying a word. The scene projected in the air was a high mountain forest. In the forest, a man in purple armor came here. Everyone saw that it was King Zilan. Listening to the movement behind him, it seemed that hundreds of millions of source beasts rushed into the desolate heaven pass, scattered and ran, and soon entered the territory of the Yanlong dynasty. It was obvious that the desolate heaven pass incident had already happened. Those scattered source beasts could not be controlled at all. It was no longer something that a few people could solve. They were facing unarmed civilians, and even the soldiers could not stop so many source beasts. In the picture, after King Zilan came to the forest, he suddenly sneered, "If you don't give me the god box, then your wife and children will be in my hands, and your reputation will be ruined. I'm waiting, you obediently send the god box up." Who said this? People were stunned and had an ominous premonition in their hearts. The next moment, in the image symbol, the purple scale king Zhang Yunting stretched out his hand and wiped his face. After a change, what appeared in people's eyes was the Flame Dragon King. When the face of the Flame Dragon King clearly appeared in the image symbol, an unprecedented explosion and sensation appeared in everyone's heart. Thinking back then, the image symbol of the purple scale king opening the desolate heaven pass spread all over the world. The soldiers of the Kailan army and the people of the world saw that it was the purple scale king who opened the desolate heaven pass and caused the death of 100,000 people. However, the two image symbols in the hands of the moon-hidden god servant, one is the cause, and the other is the consequence. The cause is that the god box fell from the sky, and the Flame Dragon King wanted to snatch it, but the Purple Scale King refused to give it to him. The consequence is that the Flame Dragon King was angry, and in order to get the god box, he disguised himself as the Purple Scale King and opened the desolate heaven pass. It was the Flame Dragon King himself who caused the death of 100,000 people. In order to obtain the god box, he made Zhang Yunting a criminal, and then used his wife, children, and subordinates as leverage to force Zhang Yunting to hand over the god box. The image symbol recorded everything clearly. People finally knew that the Flame Dragon Emperor would be so anxious. Finally, they knew that the two god servants would actually help Zhang Yunting. What they helped was justice. Holy Dragon Totem. Author, Fengqing Yang. Chapter 220. The image symbol is completely over. Everyone was stunned, including Zhang Zizai himself. I hope readers will remember our domain name Taiwan Novel Network rightward arrow. How selfish and cruel can a person's heart be? All the actions of the Flame Dragon Emperor are challenging the bottom line of people's conscience. Let me ask, when this truth is revealed, who is willing to fight for him? And fight against the sacrifice temple? The tens of thousands of strong men stood there in a daze, including Xiangliaguo, Nangongke, and others. They were all dumbfounded, looking at each other, and their mouths were dry. They had a premonition that from now on, the dynasty would change. Perhaps, the shattering of the flame dragon pillar is a sign. When everyone was shocked, Yuan divine servant said, "I have copied these two image talismans countless times. My priests of the sacrifice temple will take them to various cities for screening. People in the world have the right to know the truth. The sacrifice temple is really hateful. The rise of imperial power in recent years has oppressed the space of the sacrifice temple. With this drastic change, the sacrifice temple will definitely establish absolute power within the imperial dynasty again. The people's will is everything. As far as I know, the Flame Dragon Emperor is proficient in the secret art of disguise and can change the appearance of many people in a short time. This is an unpopular skill, but he has practiced it very skillfully. The Purple Scale King of the Desolate Heaven Pass was pretended by the Flame Dragon Emperor. In addition, the image talisman of the interrogation of Lu Yuan was also his disguise as Lu Yuan to convict Lu Yuan. The truth of this is also the right of the world. Yuan divine servant continued. The skills are not only the method of fixing totems, the method of opening the mysterious veins, and the method of forging the holy body. In fact, there are many skills, which belong to special types of skills, such as the Flame Dragon Emperor's divine annihilation technique. The secret art of disguise is also a kind of skill, but this side door has been lost for a long time, and most people don't know it. However, in the image symbol, the Flame Dragon Emperor has shown people the magic of this matter. Zhang Zizai finally understood. He was also extremely shocked. The real murderer of 100,000 wronged souls turned out to be the Flame Dragon Emperor. It seems that his father has endured humiliation and hardship for today's revelation. It was not until today that he held the evidence and began to fight back. So, this prince is not the real prince either. Maybe he disguised someone else as the prince, right? The prince died and disrupted his plan today. So, he had to create another prince. Ling Xian suddenly figured it out and asked Zhang Zizai. Zhang Zizai nodded and said, he probably has had a problem with the prince for a long time. He has prepared a substitute, given the same totem and practiced the same battle tactics. In the future, if this substitute makes any mistakes, he can destroy the prince. The real prince died a long time ago. Today's one is indeed a fake. I really didn't expect that it was so complicated. Now the truth is out. Everything is the work of the Flame Dragon King. Is he targeting you today? What did he do to you just now? Ling Xian asked softly. It is estimated that not many people know about the divine annihilation technique. Zhang Yunding should know, but I don't know if the two gods know. Zhang Zizai also shook his head and said, I don't know either. His focus is on the battle in the sky. At this time, the reputation of the Flame Dragon King is completely ruined. I don't know what kind of vortex he will fall into in the future. Anyway, the reputation of the royal family among the people will be extremely bad. The three Dragon Kings looked at each other and had no choice but to stop. If they do it again, even their reputation will be destroyed. To be honest, although they had some doubts about the truth of Desolate Heaven Pass, even they didn't know the truth. For a treasure, they exchanged the lives of 100,000 people. Isn't this crazy? Now, the whole dynasty is playing these two video symbols. They are very clear about what kind of sensation it will cause. It may even cause unrest in the dynasty. Obviously, the sacrifice temple will definitely stand up at this time and establish many sacrifice branches to let the panicked people find support again. In the future, it is hard to say whether this dynasty belongs to the royal family or the sacrifice temple. After all, the sacrifice temple represents the ancient gods, and the royal family is just the royal family. The battle in the sky is still going on crazily. The Flame Dragon Emperor is still fighting the last battle. The battlefield is hot and chaotic. The sky is full of purple thunder and golden flames, as if two ancient beasts are fighting, making a huge roar, as if the sky is split. Boom boom boom. All the scenes are shocking. Boom. Suddenly, a figure slammed down hard on the ground, creating a huge pit in the flame dragon altar. There was also a lightning figure, slowly descending. People took a closer look, and the fallen figure was burnt all over and had been injured. He was the loser. The strong men were stunned again. Legend has it that the Flame Dragon Emperor is the best in the world, and the Purple Scale King is the second. Today, the Purple Scale King defeated the Flame Dragon Emperor head-on in public. In today's battle, the Flame Dragon Emperor completely lost, and he destroyed himself completely. Zhang Yunting slowly descended, he took a deep breath, and said, "Your Majesty, the death of 100,000 people was caused by you. If I were you, I would die today to apologize to the world, and let Xiao Zhao rebuild the reputation of the royal family. You have been completely ruined. You are doing this for your own evil, and you cannot live. Zhang Yunting, you are so cruel." In the big pit, the Flame Dragon Emperor struggled to get up. "I underestimated you. You didn't show such evidence at the Six Prefectures Gala. You are so cruel. You watched Lu Yuan die without saving him even though you had the evidence." The Six Prefectures Gala was indeed an occasion. If he had shown it at that time, Lu Yuan would not have died. This chapter is not over yet. Please click on the next page to continue reading. Unexpectedly, Zhang Yunting smiled. He said, "That was not the best time. And the moon-hidden divine servant didn't come back. On that day, I was not sure, and my son was still in your hands. But who told you that Lu Yuan was dead? I, Zhang Yunting, will never do anything to disappoint my brothers." The fact that King Zilan defeated Emperor Yanlong was enough to stir up a storm in people's hearts. What was even more unexpected was that Lu Yuan, who smashed the city wall that day, did not die. How is it possible? When people were still doubting, a tall figure jumped out from outside. It was Lu Yuan. He laughed and said, "You grandson can change your appearance, so I can't practice the turtle breath secret technique to fake my death. However, that collision really cost me half my life, otherwise, how could I deceive you?" On that day, he really didn't breathe. If he was beheaded, he would definitely die, but he just hit his head and bled. When he saw Lu Yuan was as fierce as a tiger, Zhang Zizai was stunned again. He felt that his father and Lu Yuan were simply amazing. They endured humiliation and took one step at a time, and today they completely tripped up the Flame Dragon Emperor. Lu Yuan didn't die. Zhang Zizai was sad for him many times. Every time he faced Lu Dingxing, he still felt guilty. He really didn't expect it. For Lu Dingxing, happiness came too suddenly. He buried his father with his own hands. "Dad," Lu Dingxing rushed up like crazy. "Damn it, grown man, stop hugging me, it's disgusting," Lu Yuan pushed his son away. Such a scene attracted a burst of laughter. The Flame Dragon King was completely defeated. Now, all the questioning eyes were looking at him with his head down.